Zigzag and One, a place where we honestly discuss how to embrace the zigs and the zags in our crazy lives. Running away is not an option. Living in defeat is not an option. Instead, learning how to keep moving forward is what we'll do together, one nugget of wisdom at a time. Your host is Melanie Brown. She's navigated a few zigs and zags in her life with the determination to never give up. Expect great stories and lots of laughs. Are you ready? Let's do it.
Thanks for joining me for the ZIGZAG and One podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Brown. About 3.5 weeks ago, Adelia and Kathy and I sat down in Kathy's kitchen and recorded this episode. Now, this was before the coronavirus, but it was just after my cousin passed away unexpectedly. I was feeling sad. I really wasn't feeling like recording this episode, but this was the date all three of us could meet. God knew I needed Kathy and Adelia's positive attitudes and zest for life. What I didn't need were Pollyanna attitudes or encouragement to see life through rose-colored glasses. And thank goodness they didn't offer either one of those. What I needed were friends who lived out positive attitudes when life is great, and especially lived it out when life was tough. Their positive attitudes were simply life-giving to me that night, and I know they're going to be life-giving to you as well. I think during these challenging times, we need to fight to keep those positive attitudes. Guess what? I'm on my soapbox. It's something I'm really passionate about. So I'm going to jump down, and I'm going to give the floor to Adelia and Kathy. Settle in and join us. I am super excited to have these two ladies with me on this rainy afternoon. So if you hear any rain, surprise, surprise, in Atlanta, it's been raining like crazy. Woo. Yes. So I'm so excited to have Kathy and Adelia with me today. And when I decided to have an episode about positivity and including laughter in our lives, these two ladies were the ones that I knew I had to have join me. So welcome, Adelia. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Kathy, for being here.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So if you've listened to the podcast at all, you know that normally we put the one takeaway at the end, but I wanted to put it at the beginning this time so that we could incorporate it as we talk. So we're going to do that. So if we could get started with your one takeaway, Adelia.
Well, my one takeaway would be step over fear and step out on faith.
Girl, that's good.
Yay!
Yeah. How about you, Miss Kathy?
Okay, so mine is going to be positivity leads to a long life, and who doesn't want that? Because, you know, we're all working on our long lives with our wrinkles, so I'm just going to step out and say positivity is there for me.
I would agree. You look wonderful.
Thanks. I've been working on it.
So, Adelia, when I shared your story on my website, melaniebrown.com, about 1.5 years ago, I titled it Home, the Flip Side of Homelessness. Kind of tells all about Adelia's story, but if you could just briefly share your journey and how stepping over fear and out on faith is how you got through your life during those really big zigzags.
Mm-hmm. Well, my son and I, we were homeless for 2.5 years. From homeless shelter to hotel rooms to people's couches, back to hotel rooms and everything. And it was a very hard journey for me. I went through a deep depression because of it. My anxiety grew at an all-time high because of it. I was even suicidal through it as well. But I got to a point where I was like, how can I be in this situation, but I'm a believer? So it was hard for me to believe that I was in this situation. I'm a believer. I believe in God. I trust God. I depend on God. How did I get here? Why am I here? And I literally had to talk myself out of the darkness, because it was a very deep, dark place, and I literally had to talk myself out of it, pray myself out of it, worship myself out of it, praise myself out of it, and I literally had to step over fear and out on faith, because it got me to a point where I was consumed with fear. I know everyone that said they would be there for me was nowhere around. It was a very lonely, dark place. And it is amazing to see how I am out of it now, because when you're in it, you don't see your way out. You don't see, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to, where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Because I don't see it. So to be on the flip side of it is a very awesome feeling.
So let's talk about some of the ways that you got that positivity embedded in yourself, and how that made a difference in how you looked at the situation that you were in.
Well, naturally, I am an encourager.
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Naturally, I'm a pretty positive person. So when I needed encouragement, I encouraged others. So you would see on my Facebook posts, on my Twitter, on my Instagram, me encouraging and putting positivity out to everyone else. And of course, a lot of people thought I'm doing it for them, but I was actually doing it for me, because it made me feel good to make others feel good. Beautiful. And I knew that I'm not the only one going through stuff. I knew other people were going through things too. They're just not as vocal as I am. So I figured, why not, we're going to go through this thing together. And everyone doesn't know everything that I'm going through, but do know there's a way out of it.
I think that's beautiful.
Thanks.
Yes. So, Miss Kathy.
Yes, ma'am.
So, when I shared your story, it's been about 6 months ago, I titled it, Could No Longer Hide My Functional Illiteracy. And like Adelia's title, it kind of captures your story, but if you could walk us through and talk about how positivity leads to a long life.
So, I'm so fortunate that, I struggled to learn how to read for a really long time, and I hid behind the fear and masked to everybody else and trying to be strong or doing other things. And through that time, I was so embarrassed, and I wanted to tell people that I was struggling to learn to read, but I didn't have the courage to do it. And so back that story into a whole new season. When I was in Colorado Springs, I attempted suicide, and I woke up and I literally had a vision from God. I could just feel this warmth. I could feel the surrounding. I knew that I wasn't alone, and I knew that I had purpose. And I knew at that point that God had a bigger plan for me than all the stuff that I was enclosing in on myself. And it really is an enclosing thing. Mm-hmm. When you look at the negativity and you start closing it in on yourself, it's like you see that the world doesn't need you anymore. And it was the first time that I knew that, one, there's a God, and He loves me so much. And two, it was the first time, no matter what, any circumstances that I could go through, I could go back to that day and know that I am loved, that I'm valuable, and that I have a purpose in my life. And so fast forward that to coming in to meet an incredible man who literally sat beside me and through the beginning stages of a marriage, and literally we would read Dr. Seuss books together, which, by the way, starting with Dr. Seuss, that's a little hard. And speaking of Read Across America Day, but starting out with Dr. Seuss, that was a little hard. Those little things. I'm just saying, we could have started with some Dick and Jane in there, because that would have been much easier. But no, we started with Dr. Seuss. So I have had the graciousness of feeling people come around me and champion me in ways that I didn't think was possible. And that made me realize that I needed to be that for other people. And I get to do that every single day of my journey. And so that really is where that positivity does lead to a longer life, because it shifts your outcome instead of inward focus to outward focus. Right. So thank you, actually, for that. Thanks.
Yeah. So, because I'm an educator too, I'm all about your little story. Not little story, actually. Quite an amazing story. Yeah. But during all that time when you couldn't read, when we interviewed together, I think what was so incredibly impactful impactful to me was to hear how you felt amongst all those other kids who could read, and how that made you feel down. And you mentioned it a little bit, but let's dive a little deeper in how positivity may not have been there then, and how that would have changed the way things happened as a kid.
Well, I think, it's one of those things that, kids even now, I mean, you judge yourself as like, if you have this, you're here, or if you don't have this, you're here. And so it's that judgment of peers thing. And I know that really impacted me emotionally. And definitely somewhere where it's just, I just felt like even though I was super talented as an athlete, I felt very limited and very fearful, for lack of a better word, in that dark place. And so I carried that burden for a really, really long time. And just going through some very difficult circumstances in my own childhood definitely was one where it didn't spawn any positivity. So I had to kind of learn how to be positive, just because that was something that wasn't necessarily given. So I tried to gravitate to, it's like thirst and water. You want to be around people that can give you what you need. And so I would just try to gravitate to God's people or different people who would pour into me so that I could start seeing the light shine.
That's what I was going to head towards, is how did you reach out to those, that idea of positivity? Because all around our world, there's so many negative things going on, and you were in a negative situation. How did you gravitate towards those people? Did you ask for help? Did you say, I need to learn how to be more positive? It's not just something that just kind of like osmosis and sticks on us. It's not like that at all. I know it's not.
I need it to come to me. Come on, universe, give me some positive. No, I had to root out the negativity. And it started through, just like when we talked about it, through, reading and absorbing and hanging around people that were light bearers and people that would do that. Because I didn't have it for myself, and I would watch them, and I would watch how Jeff or my husband treated other people and try to glean from those skills that I didn't have. And so that's super powerful. Like, even if you're starting out in a negative space, if you're thinking, gosh, how can I be more positive about something? How can it give life? It is life-giving. That's where it comes to where you can start literally, hey, what are the layers of my friendship groups or my people or things on Instagram or whatever that I don't, I'm going to go on a tangent, so you might want to just close that one up, because I'll just get a little pickle on that one. But, just having it breathe life into you, and that's what's crucial about it. Yeah.
So let's talk about the kids, since you are an administrator in a school, and the full circle part of that, and we're going to get to Adelia's full circle in a minute. But let's talk about how you, now that you exude this positivity and this laughter and silliness and just zest for life, how do you incorporate that into what you do every day with students?
So I am so fortunate that I get to actually train kids on how to be positive. So I do.
What does that look like?
So I do the craziest videos every Friday. I try to give them a human interest story, and then any kid that comes to my office, whether it be discipline or something else, we do restorative practice that has to do with positivity, giving back, learning from our experiences, and growing. Because really, anytime we use the word punishment in schools, it really should be about restoring what happened into something that's better for our society, because punishment hurts and restoration builds. That's
Yes.
so good.
Yes, that's so good.
Right on the top of my brain.
Maybe that's your one takeaway.
Write that down.
I know, write that down. Let me go on to you. Write that down.
What did I say? You said punishment hurts.
Oh, there you go. Punishment hurts.
Restoration builds.
Oh,
Yes, very good, Kathy. I love that. So, Adelia, in the last year, you have had some zigs and zags, and some of them have been negative and some of them have been positive. So, tell us a little bit about that, and how, again, you had to rely on your positive attitude and that joy that you have within.
Well, this time last year, I was at the end of a almost 6-month medical leave. I had literally this time last year just been released from the hospital from what they said I was having heart issues, and I failed every heart test that they had given me in the hospital, and that basically everything was leading to me having to have heart surgery. Like, I was having blockage in my heart and everything. And I was in the hospital for 3 days. I took every test that they had, and at the end of those 3 days, I walked out of there okay. After all the tests and everything, and at the end of that, I'm like, okay, I'm just over it. But by the third day, everything showed up that I was okay. After all the stress tests, after all the EKGs, after all the CAT scans, after all the sonograms on my heart that said something was wrong, I ended up walking out on the third day fine.
That's incredible.
It was.
That's
but
incredible.
I was in there, I was on 6-month medical leave due to stress. I was overworked, I was overstressed, I was working 3 jobs to keep my apartment, and, you know, to take care of my son, and not knowing that I was actually on my way to stroking out, literally. And so I ended up going on a medical leave, which was probably the best decision I could have ever made for my life. If I didn't, I probably would not be here doing this podcast right now. So I did the medical leave, and when it was time for me to go back to work, I decided not to go to that particular job. And I was at a point in my life where I finally was like, okay, Lord, maybe you just anointed me to struggle because I do it so well. So maybe that this is all that you have for me. And on the flip side, I'm praying, Lord, I just need something new and exciting to happen for me in my life. And so by the time I came to the end of my medical leave, I ended up transitioning from one salon to another. And I ended up entering a contest just on a whim.
And boy, did it blow up.
I entered the contest. You know, a friend said, what do you have to lose? I was like, you know, absolutely nothing. I decided the week of that they were going to come here to do a tour stop, that I would go ahead and enter, only because God told me to do it. That's the only reason why I did it. And I entered the contest and ended up winning the whole thing.
So tell us a little bit about that, because that is such an incredible part of your story, a bit of redemption. And I followed you on Facebook, and we chatted a couple of times via text during that time. And there were some low points there, because again, it's putting yourself in a situation where you're competing against others, and you compare yourself, and there were times where you felt a little low. But how did you make sure that you stayed up, that you stayed positive? What did you say or do?
I had to tell myself that I deserved this.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I felt like I didn't deserve it. I didn't feel worthy of it. I felt like I didn't deserve it. I felt like, you know, why me? Why did they choose me? But during the contest, yes, it was a contest and it was a competition, I went in determined to be my authentic self and to be whoever God needed me to be for all those that I was going to be surrounded by. So I was surrounded by a lot of other women, and you know, that's my passion, uplifting and upbuilding other women. So I didn't go in it with, I'm going to win this contest. This is a contest, and I'm the better one, and they should choose me. I didn't go in with that. I went in with, I am going to have a good time, because finally, I got a yes. I finally got a yes. No, I didn't get a no. This door was not slammed in my face. So I was going to enjoy every minute of it, and I was going to make sure everyone around me was going to enjoy it too. So I was going to make the best of it, and that was what I was determined to do. And the simple fact that I actually stepped over fear,
yes,
and out on faith to enter that contest, and then look what happened. What if I didn't do it?
Exactly.
What if I did not do it?
And when I watched you as you went through the different phases of the competition, of course everyone is smiling. Of course they are. All the contestants are smiling. But what I saw in you is what I've seen in you from the first time that I met you. And that is that just deep within joy. And it's not happiness necessarily, because to me those two things are different.
They're extremely different.
And
yes.
I saw that joy in you, and I think that's what all of the people who were judging saw in you, and it's been such a pleasure to watch you embrace that and see all the different opportunities that you've had and the doors that have opened. So, because Kathy doesn't know and maybe the listeners aren't familiar with it, tell them what the contest was and then what a few things that you've done as a result.
The contest is called Finding Ashley Stewart. And for those that don't know, Ashley Stewart is a nationwide clothing store for plus women. And every year, we are now in the 4th year, they do a nationwide city tour to search for the new face for their company. And the person that wins, they win $10,000, they win a wardrobe for a year, amongst other prizes, and they are the face for the brand. They're the brand ambassador for a year for that company. And so every year they do like a 6-city tour stop, and it's thousands of women that show up. We just had our first tour stop not the weekend just passed, 2 weekends ago, and over 100 women showed up to audition, and they were only choosing 3. So that's what happened with me. When I went, it was 131 women that registered to enter the contest, and they were only choosing 3, and I was one of the top 3. And then from the top 3, they choose from every city that they go to. So it ended up being 24 semifinalists. Then we had to go through a week of campaigning to get all your friends and family to go and vote for you. We got a cumulative over 1 million votes.
Hey, and I voted a lot of times because I wanted to see you win.
And that's how they chose the top 8. And then the top 8, they send to New York, put us up in a nice hotel, and they have this big finale. Last year they had it at King's Theater in Brooklyn. We had Faith Evans perform. We had Salt and Pepper perform. DJ Kid Capri was one of the guest DJs. They gave away 18 scholarships, so almost $250,000 in scholarships to 18 different women. Of course, they honored their top managers and salespeople as well. It was over 3,300 people that packed the house out. And they do this every single year. So, yeah. I'm a queen now.
You are a queen. You were a queen before, but you're even more a queen.
And you sparkle.
Yes, you do.
So as we start getting towards the end of the podcast, it's almost over, ladies. So fast.
Sit down.
Okay, so why do you believe that a positive attitude is extremely important as we go through our lives? Not just when we hit the rough patches or the zigzags, but like just on a daily basis. Why is a positive attitude so extremely important?
It's life-giving. It's life-giving for others. It's life-giving. It rewires your brain. It changes your health. I mean, we all are looking for all these secrets to health. But in actuality, when you look at the research and you look at all the scientific data, positivity, optimism, those things shift our DNA. They shift who we are inside, and they have the ability to then take it from the inside to then spawn out into bigger and better things. And really, that's one of the main things that science will tell you leads to so many other. That's the yes that keeps going and going and going. That's why it's a life giver. That's the most powerful life giver that we can give to other people to sustain for future generations.
And it does something good for us.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah,
it gives us life.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And in preparing for this and doing a little bit of research, again and again and again, it came up just like what happened with Adelia. And having that positive attitude helped the inflammation go down and help you have a better outcome with your health issues. So, Miss Adelia, why is positive attitude so extremely important?
It's important because, who wants to be a negative Nancy? Oh my gosh. That's such a horrible place to be in, to be a negative Nancy. I never want to be that person that walks in a room and everyone is like, oh God, there goes Adelia. I never want to be that person. I never want to be that person when she walks out the room, everybody is relieved. I never want to be that person. Positivity brings the light. and we are supposed to be the light of the world. And I always want to be light wherever I go, because we have to be light in other people's darkness. Some people don't know how to be positive. So we have to be representations of how to make that happen. And especially when we're going through our own tests and trials, and for someone to see that that person is still positive too, it not only transforms our lives, but it transforms the lives of others. And that's what we were put here to do.
Preach it, girl.
Amen. Amen. All I was going to say is amen and sparkle. Amen and sparkle.
Amen and sparkle. I love it.
You two are so much fun.
Ooh, yeah.
Thank you, ladies. Oh, this has been so much fun. I just know that this episode is going to be one of those go-tos when those who are listening are having a rough day or a rough week, and they just need a little bit of laughter and a reminder of how important positivity is. So thank you, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Adelia.
Yes.
So when life zigs and zags, and you know that it will, remember what these ladies said: to step over fear and out on faith, and that positivity leads to a long life. Yes, ma'am. So join us next time. I hope y'all got the same vibe that I did when I left that evening after recording with them, and I was sad about my cousin passing away. I needed that, and I've listened to this episode several times even since we've recorded it. Those reminders that life can be really tough, but keeping a positive mindset not only helps me, but it helps others. And in that case, that night, their positive attitudes really helped me. And I hope those positive attitudes help you as well. Adelia's message of stepping over fear and stepping out in faith could not be more perfect for this time. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to share this episode on your social media. I'm looking forward to the episodes that I have to share with you in April. Until next time, keep moving forward.